Romans chapter 12, third part of that chapter. Kind of a deep chapter. And last week we did the first three verses, first three questions. There, Jessica. Thank you. But we'll go through them again. So let's reread it, 9 to the end of the chapter. Romans 12:9 to the end of the chapter.
Don't just pretend to love others. Really love them. Hate what is wrong. Hold tightly to what is good. Love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. Never be lazy, but work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. Rejoice in our confident hope. Be patient in trouble and keep on praying. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Don't curse them. Pray that God will bless them. Be happy with those who are happy and weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with each other. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people and don't think you know it all. Never pay back evil more than evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see you are honorable. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. Dear friends, never take revenge. Leave that to the righteous anger of God. For the scripture says, I will take revenge, I will pay them back, says the Lord. Instead, if your enemies are hungry, feed them. If they are thirsty, give them something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals of shame on their heads. Don't let evil conquer you, but conquer evil by doing good.
Okay. How is love sincere? You guys who were here last week can pretend you're brilliant this week. If you remember what we said last week. How is love sincere? For one, it has to be active, and it has to be controlled by the source. Okay. If you go into the Greek dictionary, you find 5 words for love. There's a phileo, brotherly love. There's agape, that's God's love. There's eros, that's physical attraction. There's materni, that's a mother's love, that love that'll cause a mother, or there was a thing on the internet a few months back where a mother cat went into an apartment building that was on fire and rescued all 6 of her kittens. Had all the hair singed off of her back and sides. But she went right back in and got every kitten out of that fire. That's a materni love, a love that is focused on one thing, that mother preserving or protecting her children. And I forget the last one, but I forget the Greek word for it, but it's a love of material things. A love of cars, a love of clothes, a love of money. Love your house. We had a friend up north that really good friend, and they lived in a really nice farmhouse. Finished basement, first floor, second floor, everything. Everything was the whole thing had been restored. But Sharon did not think that they were living in a house that was up to their status in life. And Tyrone farmed 7,000 acres. He was a very good farmer, and he was very successful. And they could live in any kind of a house they wanted to. But we were up there visiting about 5 years ago, and I said, and Sharon ran up to us, and we were in Indianapolis, and she said, you got to come out and see our house. Well, they lived in Fairmount. That's a mile and a half, or an hour and 15, hour and a half north of Indianapolis. She said, you got to come out and see our house. I said, well, we're not going to be in the neighborhood on this trip, but maybe the next time we're in the neighborhood, we'll come by. Well, you got to come see it. You got to come see it. And she walked away, and I looked at Jerome, and I said, so you got a new house? He said, yeah, I'm still married. But anyway, you know, some things to people, material things are a lot of times very important. I'll get that Greek word for that and bring it back next week. I forget, or I may remember it for you. Okay, can evil be part of love?
No.
Can't be part of agape love. Probably not going to be part of maternal love. Brotherly love. Usually, you know, brothers will fight each other until somebody passes out, but if somebody from outside of the family attacks the brothers, and it's a united front, they come together, and it's more of a family thing. And now eros can turn to evil. A lot of people have a physical attraction and no commitment connected with it, and generally that does not turn out well. Okay, but basically the answer is no, because evil is not a entity unto itself, it's the absence of something. So this statement here is a debate that a student had with a professor, and most people say it's attributed to Einstein. And there's people who want to debunk that and say it isn't. But I wasn't there, so I don't know for sure. But it's a good statement. The professor starts out saying that there is no God. And so then this is a reply to him, to his statement and his foundation for saying there is no God. To this the student replied, evil does not exist, sir. Or at least it does not exist unto itself. Evil is simply the absence of God. It is just like darkness and cold, a word that man has created to describe the absence of God. God did not create evil. Evil is a result of what happens when man does not have God's love present in his heart. It is like the cold that comes when there is no heat, or it's like the darkness that comes when there is no light. So darkness is not measurable. Have you ever heard somebody say, well, we had 40 watts of darkness today? Or we had minus 40 watts of darkness today?
The snow.
Darkness is simply the absence of light. Evil is the absence of love, or the absence of God. And the Bible defines love as God is love. Okay, so true love, that uncompromising commitment, is always associated with God. Okay. Now, when you take God out of something, what happens to it? We took, when I was a kid, God was very much a part of the government. And somewhere along the way, we came up with the separation of church and state, which is found where? In the Constitution. It's not in the Constitution. I had a $100 bet with a guy at a Holland Plumbing one time. He swore up and down it was, so I said, bet you $100 it's not in there. Yes, it is. I said, no, it isn't. Yes, it is. I laid my $100 down on the table and I brought him a copy of the Constitution the next day. And about 3 weeks later, I said, have you read that Constitution yet? It's in there. I just haven't found it yet. How many times have you read it? 3 or 4. Well, must be hidden pretty tight. It's not in there. It's not in there. It is something that got fabricated because they didn't want God in the government. They didn't want God. Well, if I was a politician, I probably wouldn't want the Holy Spirit hanging around me either. But it's the way it is. But what has happened to the government since we decided to push God out of it?
Correct.
It's corrupt. Everything about it is going downhill fast. And I'm not talking about Democrats or Republicans, I'm talking about all of them. They're all a bunch of liars. The one party tells me what I want to hear, and the other party tells the other people what they want to hear, and pretty much none of it's the truth. Some guy said something very astute not too long ago. He said, you can't tell the people the truth and get elected. A lot of truth in that. Okay, what are the 12 things that make it sincere? Right. As we go through there, hate what is evil, cling to what is good. That's kind of one statement, two sides of one statement. So, what's the first thing we have to do in order to make love sincere?
Hate what's evil and love what's good. Hate what's evil and
Cling
love
to
what's
the
good.
good. Cling to the good. Walk away from the evil and try to find the good in everything. You ever been around a person that could not see the good in anything? Everything was negative. I don't care what happened, everything was negative. Okay? That's the way people are. That's the way some people are. There is absolutely always something good in everything that befalls you, if you look for it and if you wait for God to show you. All right. Cling to the good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Second one.
Devotion.
Devotion. All right. Honor one another above yourselves. What's the third one?
Honor others.
Honor. Honor one another above yourself. How do you honor the church? How do you honor your mother and your father?
The way you behave.
Hmm?
The way you behave.
Behave. How does that reflect honor on God or honor on the church or honor on your mother and father? It shows that they raised you well, that they took the time to be your parents, that they taught you what was right and what was wrong. And your life reflects honor upon them. A lot of people say, well, it means I have to be obedient to them. And that's not what it means. It's good to be obedient to them, but that's not what honor means. You know, if they have an honor dinner, what are they doing? They're having a dinner to celebrate somebody's accomplishments. They honor somebody for being a good civic worker, for feeding the hungry, for donating money to good causes. They have an honorary dinner for them because they did a good job that year. Okay. So honor is your actions. Our whole life testifies as to what we really believe about God. Not what we profess, or not what we know we should profess, but what we really believe about God. Our whole life. And we're not just talking about an hour on Sunday morning, we're talking about the whole week. What do I really believe about God, and then how do I live my life? Well, how I live my life is really what I believe about God. You know, when I'm around you, I try to be perfect. But what do I do on Monday and Tuesday when I'm not likely to see you guys? That's what I really believe. You know that old saying, you can fool all the people some of the time, some of the people all the time, but you can't fool Mom. Well, they should have put God in there instead of Mom. And works pretty good for Mom too. She can always see the guilt in your eyes when you walk in the door. Okay, honor. Honor one another above ourselves. Never be lacking in zeal. What's the next one?
Zeal.
Zeal. Okay, and what does zeal mean?
Enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm. Passionate about something. Really going for it. really trying to be the best you can possibly be about that thing that you have focused on. It might be Christianity, it might be your football team, it might be playing basketball, it might be that you want to be the valedictorian of your class. And so you do everything you possibly can do to make that happen, right? But keep your spiritual fervor. Never lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor. What's the next one? Fervor. What's fervor? Same thing as zeal. They're synonyms of each other. Now last week when we were talking about it, we kind of lumped them together and then we came up with 11. And I went back and I looked at it, and if you look at it very closely, when it says zeal, it's talking about all-encompassing, your physical activity, your mental activity. But fervor, it isolates that and says spiritual fervor. Zeal is more action. It's more physical. It's seeable. Fervor is something that kind of sits in the background and can kind of, it's like bread rising. Yeah. It's there. It's growing. It's accomplishing something. It's building. But it's not something that you walk in, you look at it, and 5 minutes later you look at it, nothing's happening. 5 minutes later you look at it, nothing's happening. So you kind of give up and walk away. An hour, you come back and it's over the pan. It's something that's very subtle and very slow, but it's very, very urgent. It does not let go of it. So fervor is kind of where your spirit is. You're growing quietly in God, and it spills out into your zeal. Okay. Now the two words mean the same thing. If you look up zeal, it'll say fervor, and if you look up fervor, it'll say zeal. But the Bible kind of separates it out here into two different applications.
Bill, fervor is your hotbed of coals and zeal is the flame.
Yeah. Okay. Say it again.
He said fervor is your hotbed of coals.
Yeah.
And zeal is your leaping flame that's burning everything.
Yeah. Okay, good. All righty, so spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. What's the next one? Service. Service. And if you're serving the Lord, you're serving all of creation. If I'm serving the Lord, I'm also serving Jennifer, and I'm serving Jessica, and I'm serving Chris. Okay? If I'm just serving Chris and not serving the Lord, it's not going to be, it's not going to have the same end result. Salvation Army went down to one of the islands after a hurricane, and they handed out food with Bibles. Okay? The government sent 900 tons of food down there and dumped it off on a dock, and they estimated that half of it was eaten by rats. And the half that the people actually got, they had a meal for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but then they were hungry again, and nothing had really been accomplished. We had eased their pain for 3 weeks, but nothing had been accomplished. When the Salvation Army gave them food, they also gave them a Bible so they could learn about God and so that their lives could be improved and not just their stomachs. Okay. There's a lot of examples where the government has tried to do something and it's failed, but the missionaries have gone in and done the exact same thing, and it was a total success. Have you ever heard of Dave Wilkinson? Wrote some books back in the 1950s and 1960s. He left, I think he was either Ohio or Indiana, and he went to New York City to minister to the gangs in New York City. Okay? 15 years later, the 60s and the 70s hit, and everybody was on drugs. Not everybody, but a lot of people were on drugs. The government's success story with their drug rehabilitation program was 12%. You know what Dave Wilkinson's was? 93. Why? Because he gave them God, he gave them the power to beat it, he gave them the truth, and 93% of all the people he ministered to in his clinic in New York City, right in the middle of gang territory, was successful in getting people off drugs. The government, 12%. There are millions of examples. All right, service to God. Be joyful in hope. Two of them there.
Joy and hope.
Hmm?
Joy and hope.
Joy and hope. Joy and hope. One of the biggest oxymorons of all time, a grumpy Christian. Think about it. Our Father is a king. He has promised to supply all my needs. He answers my prayers. He heals my body. And I can guarantee you that happens. Right, Jessica?
Yep.
I'm a good example of that, right? Ladders don't help a bit, but God will heal your body. Okay.
And you keep going up them.
Huh?
And you keep going up them.
I just want you to know that.
Can't keep a good man down.
Okay. We should be the happiest people. We should be walking around like, man, nothing can beat me. I've got God. Was that your week last week with the snow? I had a great week. Everywhere I went, I got there safely. You know, my wife's sitting there holding on. And I'm just whistling driving down the road because God said he'd get me there. If I use a little common sense and act like I've got a brain, I'd have a bit of trouble coming to church last Sunday morning. Now, I'm not trying to criticize anybody for not coming. It was a bad morning. Okay? But I decided to come. I fixed breakfast. 11 of us showed up. I didn't have a wheel spin anywhere. But I didn't drive 55 miles an hour either. Bottom line is, we are the children of a king living in a kingdom, and we ought to live like it. We ought to walk in victory and know that whatever tomorrow brings, God's got a solution. If we can't get out of the house, God has always kept my house warm. Remember that blizzard of 77?
75.
No.
77? Was it 77?
Was anybody born here in 77?
I was born during this blizzard.
I remember it well.
I was gonna say I keep every time Facebook comes on, it's another blizzard and it's another year and it's they've got so many of them out there with different years on. I'm not sure which blizzard was the worst.
I have pictures. When I woke up the morning the night after the morning after the night the blizzard hit, I woke up and everything was dark, so I went back to sleep. And a little while later, I woke up again and everything was still dark, and I went back to sleep. And finally, I rolled over and looked at the clock. It was 10:30 in the morning, and it was dark, pitch dark. So I got up and I pulled the curtains back, and the windows were caked with snow, and I thought, well, it just blew in on the windowsill and covered up the window. My house was 3 foot deep in a snowdrift. The whole house. I shoveled snow for 4 hours before I found my truck. Completely buried. When I got the truck, I've got pictures of me standing beside the truck after I got the truck out. and the snow was 4 feet above my head on both sides of the driveway. And I'm sitting there in a hole with my truck. I mean, behind the truck, it was 4 feet above the truck too. I shoveled for 4 days to find the county road. And all that was probably the warmest we were ever in the winter in that house,
Yeah,
because
of
the
the
snow
snow.
was buried that house, and the
Insulated.
wind couldn't hit it. And I mean, it was so warm in that house, we had to turn the heat down. Now you could say, oh, woe is me, I got buried in a snowdrift. Or you can say, man, look at all the money I'm saving on electricity. God took care of us. Right. Joy and then hope. The next one's hope. There's a lot of situations that have been documented. In Vietnam, a lot of times people would be taken prisoner of war. Some of those guys came home and they weighed 80, 85, 90 pounds. They were nothing but bones and skin. And they'd get off that plane and they would have clutched in their hands, they'd have a picture of their wife or their new baby or something. And every day they said they would look at that picture and know that someday that it would be over and they'd go home. That hope kept them going through the beatings and the broken bones and the starvation and all the abuse. That hope kept them alive. There's also in the same prisoner of war camps, some Green Beret would get captured, and you know, his whole thing was this macho thing of being a Green Beret and not being captured, and he would lose all hope, and within 2 weeks he'd curl up in the corner and he'd die, 200 pounds, healthy, hadn't gone through much of any of the abuse yet, but he'd just curl up in the corner of his hooch, wherever it was, and they'd find him dead in the morning because he just simply lost hope. He did not have any hope that he was going to make it out of there, and he curled up and died. Okay, what's the next one? Serving God joyful in hope, patient in affliction. Our favorite, right? Patience. No. I don't think I've told all you this story. When we were about to have our first baby, and that was in 1977 too. About to have our first baby. We'd been married for 7 years. Huh?
Is that what happened? The blizzard? You were stuck in the house and then she got pregnant?
No,
I wonder why.
this was in the summer before the blizzard.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I had taken some gravel home in the back of my pickup truck, and I had spread it on the driveway, and I was sitting in the back of the pickup truck, and something had happened, and I got mad and threw the shovel. And I sat down and I thought, man, my wife's 6 months pregnant, and I'm acting like a heathen. And I know this kid is going to get on my last nerve. I'm going to have to do something about my patience. And so I prayed for patience. Not the smartest thing you would do. It's probably the smartest thing you ever do, but it's not going to end up to be the most pleasant thing you ever do. The very next day, some guy from Tennessee pulls into an abandoned house, catty-cornered across the road from me. There was nobody living in it, with his 14 kids. Now, Janice says there was only 9 of them, but I'm sure there was 14. I swear to you there was 14 of them. He had nothing. Within a week, my hoe, my rake, my shovel, everything I owned was across the road. He had borrowed it. And if I needed it back, I'd go over and borrow it back. And this one kid with a bicycle. And this kid would start out at his house, ride down to my house, the tire would be flat. He'd knock on the door, Mr. Benner, please, could you blow up my bicycle? And I'd get out my compressor, I'd blow up his bicycle. He'd ride down to the end of the road, ride back to my house, it would be flat again, he'd knock on my door. And I'd blow up his bicycle tire and he'd ride it home. And he'd do this sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. So finally I went to town, I got a box of patches, and the next time he stopped by, I ripped the tire off the thing and I patched his too. You pray for patience, God's going to give it to you, but it's going to be a work in progress. It is not going to be something that showers down upon you like a warm shower. God is, in my case, he moved this guy in next door and I learned to be patient. And I learned a lot of lessons along the way too. They were good people. They just didn't have anything but a station wagon. All they had. I helped him get his garden started. He appreciated it, but they didn't have anything. Let's get through the rest of these very quickly. Patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Huh? Faithful? Faithful in prayer. Share with God's people.
Share.
Sharing. Who are in need. Practice hospitality. Hospitality. Okay. You ever been in a house and you just you felt like it was okay to go get a drink of water, and then you're in another house and you're not sure whether you kind of feel like you need to get permission to use the bathroom or even to speak? You ever been in a situation like that? Some houses are just hospitable and you just feel at home. And after you've been there for a little while, you know you don't have to trouble the host or the hostess for a drink of water. They're fine with you getting a glass and getting it yourself. Other people, it's like, what are you doing in my cupboard? Have you been into both kinds? No? Hopefully mine's one you can just walk in, get in the refrigerator, and get whatever you want. Hope you feel that way. Other people, probably not that easy. All right. 1 Corinthians 13 condenses it a little bit different, and this will be quick, and then we got to go upstairs. In Romans chapter 12, we got 12 things that talk about love. But in Romans 13:13 it says, and now these 3 remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. You know, it really starts with love. It starts with God, and then the rest of it just matures and grows within you. We got to get upstairs.